Hey there, Guardians. Hope you guys are doing well, and welcome to Destiny 2 Oversimplified, the channel for new and returning players. Today we're going to be taking a look at Shadebinder, which is the Stasis Warlock subclass. I'm going to be going over the one available super, all of the abilities, the 4 aspects, and then I'll touch on a few exotics that are good for the subclass. To start, we have the super, Winter's Wrath. So this is a roaming super, which means you can roam around the battlefield. So you're going to have a light attack, which casts out ice at enemies, and then you have a heavy attack that will detonate and shatter all of the ice. So I'm going to activate it, and I can shoot out ice, and if I use my other attack, it'll detonate and shatter anything that's frozen. Winter's Wrath is a solid overall super. It does okay damage, but it's very good for ad clear. But when paired with a certain exotic, it can ramp up the damage to boss killing. Next up, we have the abilities. Standard rifts here with healing and empowering. Our 3 glides. As always, I recommend Burst Glide. You have 1 melee here, Penumbral Blast, where you raise your stasis staff against your foe. It sends stasis forward and it freezes targets. There are 3 available grenades on the Stasis Warlock. The first one is Duskfield Grenade, where you throw it and it will slow in an area of effect and eventually freeze enemies who do not leave the slowing field. The next grenade we have is Cold Snap Grenade, which freezes on impact and sends another Seeker to find and freeze targets. This one is going to be very essential for a certain exotic that I'll talk about in a bit for Warlock. The last grenade we have is Glacier Grenade, where you throw a grenade and it creates a wall out of stasis crystals to block damage and freeze targets. Warlock doesn't have a lot of synergy with Glacier Grenade like Hunter does, so typically you focus on Duskfield and Cold Snap. Onto the aspects, so the first one we have is Frost Pulse, where casting your Rift generates a shockwave that freezes nearby combatants. The next aspect is Glacial Harvest. Freezing targets creates stasis shards around the frozen targets. Higher tier combatants create more shards, while Glacial Harvest is equipped. Picking up stasis shards grants stacks of Frost Armor. Frost Armor and other terms such as freezing and frozen. If you're ever unsure what they do, you can always click on an ability, highlight it, and it'll explain it to the right. Frost Armor just gives you damage reduction, and the more stacks you get, then the more damage reduction that you have. So for this, I'm going to use my Rift to freeze some enemies, kill them, and these are stasis shards. And I can pick one up, and it'll give me stacks of Frost Armor. The next aspect is Ice Flare Bolts. Shattering a frozen target spawns Seekers that track freeze other nearby targets. The last aspect we have is Bleak Watcher. Holding your grenade button converts it into a stasis turret that fires slowing projectiles at nearby targets. Typically, you would want to pair Bleak Watcher with a Duskfield since it has the lowest base cooldown of your 3 grenades. So I'm going to hold my grenade, and then I can throw it, and it'll slow targets, eventually freezing them. Alright, and moving on to some exotics. So the first one we have is Balidor's Wrathweavers, which is certainly a name. So this one is going to pair with your super. So it says your Winter's Wrath Shockwave deals increased shatter damage, so this is just a damage buff to your super. Additionally, allies in range of your Winter's Wrath Shockwave gain Frost Armor and deal increased damage with stasis weapons. So casting your super gives allies Frost Armor, so damage reduction. It's going to give them the maximum stacks right off the bat, and those allies would also deal increased damage with stasis weapons. An additional use for this exotic are using it with Frost Pulse because they also get this second part. If you remember, Frost Pulse is the aspect where casting your Rift generates a shockwave that freezes nearby combatants. So I don't have any allies to test this, but I can cast my Rift, and it gave me Frost Armor times 8. Now I'm pairing this with a Fragment that increases my stacks. Normally it's going to be times 5, but as you can see, I have a lot of damage reduction. And without the Fragment, you can see it gives me times 5. I also get the Stasis Weapon Boost times 2. Overall, Balidor's Wrathweavers is a fantastic exotic to pair with Stasis Warlock. Up next, we have Osmiomancy Gloves. Now, this is another really good one. So it states your Cold Snap grenades have an additional charge, so you get 2 of them, and they also recharge quicker on direct impact. The Seeker spawn from Cold Snap grenades travel further. You can pair this with a number of your exotics. It's going to synergize best with Glacial Harvest and Ice Flare Bolts, but you can also pair it with Bleak Watcher, which means now you have 2 stasis turrets that you can throw out. So I'm going to throw out my grenade. It's a lot more aggressive with its tracking, and I also have a second charge ready to go. As you can see, it charges faster as well. So if you like using cold snap grenades, then Osmiomancy is definitely the one to pick. That's pretty much it for the specific Stasis exotics. There are a number of neutral game exotics, which means they're not specifically created for Stasis. I'll go over neutral exotics in another video, but just to mention some of them now, I Have Another World works very well with Warlock Stasis, as well as Mantle of Battle Harmony. These aren't specifically made for Stasis, they just work well. And yeah, to review, we talked about the super, we talked about the abilities, talked about the 4 aspects, and we talked about some good exotics to use. Overall, Stasis Warlock is extremely strong in all levels of PvE content. So that's like against computer combatants. It's going to be good in low level content and high level difficulty. And on top of that, it's just very fun. You can do a lot of really fun builds with Stasis Warlock. I hope this helped. If it did help, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like. If it didn't help, you can go ahead and leave me a dislike and then maybe comment what you think I should have done better, or if there's anything that you wanted to specifically see for Stasis Warlock. Thank you so much for watching. See you later.